if you are just starting out on all of this, answers are most likely going to come to you autopilot. You know what I'm saying? Where just enough of your ego is distracted so that peripheral awareness actually becomes a lot easier to access. I'm Silver, a born clairvoyant and near-death experiencer, and welcome to the Rogue Yogi show, where this is all about you remembering that you are your best guru. This is a huge video today. It basically encompasses so much of what I teach into one single video. And it does have to do with intuition, or the word I really dislike, being psychic. And first thing I want to go into is, if you're wondering if you are, I can tell you that yes, you are. Full stop. From my experience, and this is only my experience, but from when I died and when I merged with that prime consciousness, like God, whatever you may call that, the biggest realization I had was that every single incarnated soul was a part and parcel of God. We are not only innately, naturally hardwired for communication or awareness beyond what we're taught, beyond the five senses. It's not just that we're hardwired for it, it's that we are it. And if you think about it, in a world without filters and different authority figures imprinting on you in childhood, and messages that get reinforced in schools and the media, if that was all stripped away, we would all be seeing and hearing and sensing and feeling what we are made of, which is everything. So just to stop you right there with your doubting, which is 110% to be expected, especially for somebody who is early in their journey, because we're going to be talking about some things that could sound pretty out there for someone who has not yet experienced anything like this. I don't like the word psychic because, first of all, it reminds me of that movie Big, where the tiny Tom Hanks, like, to Madame Zelda or whatever, and gets like a ticket out of the machine. Like, it reminds me of traveling circuses and scammy sideshows. Most importantly, it kind of used as an exclusionary adjective. Oh, that person's psychic. Oh, we're all psychic. It does, however, have to do with how open-minded you are to this entire subject. There are people like, parents, for example, what I've experienced since birth, which is also really weird and is also a huge reason why I'm open to everything. Because for whatever reason, I chose to come down here open to all of that from the crib. So I had that advantage, if you will, of deeply knowing that life was way more complicated and convoluted, and that there was so much more around us than a lot of other people see. Because by kindergarten, I'd been, ad nauseum at night talking to my parents about the things I would see in my bedroom. And I was very specifically told, that is not true. You are not seeing that. It is your imagination. You've always had a great imagination. Go back in there. And most importantly, I was told never to speak of it. So as a child, there are certain things you just know are true, period. To the point where an authority figure like your mom and dad could say to you, no, that's not true. And this goes, unfortunately, for a lot of really subject matters. This was not just clairvoyance for me. It was also like down about sexual when I was young. And then when I was a little older, I did not even go there because I knew it would only make my parents mad. But like a child, when things are so black and white, the way you kind of stuff that gets through, even decades of authority figures telling you otherwise. So in that sense, I was blessed because it was everywhere. It was in the daytime. It was in the nighttime. I'd be in school. I'd be like 7th grade, I remember specifically thinking, okay, class, the walls look like the tops of swimming pools. And I was pretending to pay attention to the class when in reality, I was genuinely terrified and thinking through like what could happen if the floors were to turn that way next and I fell through. So this has been real to me since I have memory. And that is a huge advantage because like I look around, I never know what I'm going to see or how it's going to present itself or what I'm literally going to experience that like couldn't even explain to you. There's so much of my life like started with clairvoyance and it just rolled into everything else. And there's probably about like the stuff I've experienced that I couldn't even explain to you. That's the one thing I wanted to say also. If you're just curious about this and you haven't even had an experience necessarily that you can point to and be like, yes, some kind of multidimensional connection or sighting or whatever it was. If you're even curious about it, I feel comfortable saying to you, there is an innate reason you might not be fully aware of yet, driving you to find out more about this and trust that. Also, there's no one way anything happens. No one way. And it's stupid. And it's not stupid. That's a little rough. But like the way things are presented, for example, in movies, it makes it look like, oh, clairaudience, which is clear hearing. Oh, it only happens one way. It's only a kind of scary and echoey voice you hear, and you don't really know what to do with it, but it's scary and it's weird. Or clairvoyance, clear seeing, is when you can't tell the difference between a real-time living person and an apparition. And just so you know, that's been a part of my experience. But for example, I've seen beings that are like, see through them. And if they're presenting in a human form, I can literally see the pores on their skin. It is true. And if they're dressed in modern clothing, the only way you would know is if you had seen them before in other clothing that is more signature of their times, or you've seen or heard them or whatever it is in some other kind of way. But that's like a really big deal to see from head to foot an apparition, completely realistic, completely undifferentiable. Wait, what's the word? What's the word? Okay, whatever. You can't differentiate between a living, breathing being and a spiritual being. That is not the majority. Angels have been anthropomorphized by us since the Bible. But like, I was 5 years old seeing angels like in and out of my room and following me behind me, which I could not understand, and it really scared me. Did not know what they were. I've seen anthropomorphized angels about 25% of the time, or maybe even 20, most of the time. And I have a lexicon at this point because I've been gathering intel for decades. But like archangels present as, for example, like a huge oval of a gem color. And archangels, like my lexicon, they will take the scale of the room to kind of what we would call hierarchy. Just, it's not hierarchy, but it's like us to symbolically understand it easier. An archangel, for example, would present as oval, set of like colored rings around a main colored oval that would be as tall as the I was in. But like Michael is not a dude. He doesn't exist with like a sword and hilt. He doesn't like exist with a pair of wings and like leather strappy sandals. Angels are like made to be our best friends and most direct communication with God. So that's the same thing also with deities, with ascended masters. These beings are Jesus and the Buddha and Kuan Yin and Saint Germain and Mother Teresa and even the celebrities on earth who were so impactful. I've had visitations from David Bowie and Elizabeth Taylor and Judy Garland. It's not just a certain kind of consciousness that would come to present to you. I remember Maya Angelou telling me no one ever needs to worry, ever, about whether they have spirit guides and whether they're the best fit. Because for one, our greatest guide, who is always with us. In fact, please hear me, it's impossible to be disconnected from this guide, is your soul self. If this is me here, Silver, this is like a tiny pinch of who I am. 99% of me exists in spirit. You cannot ever be disconnected from your own higher self, but it can feel that way. That's when you've got to remember it's not real. It only feels like you're disconnected, but it's impossible. And to take that a step further, in that same exact way, you can never be disconnected from whatever you call God. It is the illusion of separation, if ever you feel that way. And usually a lot of other filters that are activated, like or fear, but it's never real. And if you've ever caught yourself just suddenly knowing an answer to something, and you're like, where did that come from? Like it's like somebody just like, bloop, like the answer in your head. Or you've ever had a feeling about how someone else is doing, or you've walked into a room and like almost like you can feel like, okay, it's so tension filled in here. Like these two people were like into it and then I walked in. Or opposite, like you walk into a room, there's two people and you're like, oh, I think I like something. And like, maybe, I don't know, like they like each other. You ever had a feeling about something or a situation? That's all a part of this too. I want to go over a couple of things to cement this confidence in you. One, I say this all the time because I'm obsessed with it. Albert Einstein referred to himself as an artist. The greatest scientist of all time referred to himself as an artist because that is how much he credited intuition for his work. He knew it was not just Albert Einstein and Albert Einstein's brain coming up with his stuff. One of his quotes was, I want to know God's thoughts. The rest are just details. Boom. That's like the best, most beautiful quote from the most unlikeliest person ever. Flip side of the same coin, if you are not doubting yourself, that would concern me. It would. Like, let you have a really early sign of something. Let's say you see a sparkle at the corner of your eye and like you turn really quickly and there's no reflective surface or anything that like could caught the sun and made that sparkle. Considering the way we've all been raised in this culture, of course you're going to doubt yourself. Of course. It's going against the grain of like a lot of taboo and unfortunately a lot of BS and a lot of scams that do have to do with people saying they are dimensionally aware and connected and in communion. There's so much BS attached to that. And that's like, I wish I could like tap back for everybody. Yes, you're going to doubt yourself for sure, especially with clairaudience. That's when you're clear hearing something. And I want you to know your higher self, if that is your most natural multidimensional avenue, they're going to start by using your own voice in your own mind, inside. Not some disjointed, creepy ass voice outside of you. They don't want to scare you. But if you're interested and you want to stretch, we all have a most natural 1 to 2 clairs. And if clear hearing is one of yours, let's say you love music, you can hear tones within tones. You can hear when something's off. You're very dialed in to your surrounding sounds in general. And you might love singing. You might play an instrument. You might have a fascination with the connection between like and physical movement. Those are kind of somebody who might have clear hearing as one of their main things. That said, you can also be like the biggest math genius in the world. Like, it's not a profile. I'm just saying there are hints within your huge array of interests and your personality traits. There's always some kind of a hint as to what may be your most natural clair. And because your guides want this so badly, they want nothing more than for you to first ask for help more. It's the same thing every time I work with a woman. Everyone's higher self. I have probably met with 2 women where it's not been like her to ask for more help, more. Like, oh, but I asked for help 10 minutes ago. It doesn't matter. Nothing is finite in spirit. They're not like, oh my God, I'm so tired. I can't help again. It's not like that. Just like I used to think, I was so terrified when this big avalanche of openings and abilities happened to me at one point. Like I didn't think I could get more clairvoyant, and then I was like through my body and all this crazy stuff was happening. And I was like, I can't ask Archangel Michael to stay with me tonight. He's got a lot bit more important things to handle. I totally did not allow myself to ask him. These beings, they're not human. They're like a degree off from God. They're infinite and they can be everywhere at once. And from experience, I can tell you, from my near-death experience, there is no time. If you were to be in spirit and you were to think, say, a sentence before, like the first microsecond of the first syllable of the first word came out, it would be done. Or you would be there. I don't get that. I don't get, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, all I know is that our consciousness is not limited by anything. For example, linear time, space, like I'd have to fly 10 miles to get to that. Like, it's just not like that. It's just like I was saying, your guides want more than anything, because you also have a bunch of guides who are not your higher self. They're your subdominant guides who have made this arrangement with you before, before you incarnate, like who's going to stay behind, who's going to go down, who's going to do what to who, so everyone can explore whatever emotional theme they want to. And your clear hearing, your guides want you to ask them for help, and they, more than anything, want you to be able to receive their answers. And so as not to scare you, if you are just starting out on all of this, answers are most likely going to come to you while you're peeing, while you're washing the dishes, showering, driving, any time that you are doing something that's partially autopilot. You know what I'm saying? Where just enough of your ego is distracted so that peripheral awareness actually becomes a lot easier to access. And like I said, it's going to sound like your own head had that thought. But if you really look at it, you'll be like, wait a second. I actually wasn't thinking about that at all. And it came out of nowhere, actually, when I take a look at it. So again, yes, you know, voices to hear that clearly outside yourself, but you're not going to be put in that position until your higher self believes you to be ready. And that's why a lot of people go years, actually, without even realizing they're clairaudient. So the other thing, I want to just emphasize doubt. I grew up this way, experiencing things that, you know, likely I'll probably never talk about. I don't understand. I mean, some of them have been the most incredible and like a movie, like magic, you know. But then you think back to like the cavemen who would think like in our lives are magic. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't understand yet. I don't know how I'm doing this, but I just don't know how yet. You know, I would want you to make 2 vows to yourself, your higher self, and God. One, and also I would say this aloud in the mirror, if you're serious. Because when you say things aloud, I do not mean this in a witchy way, like you're casting a spell. I'm meaning that when you declare something as yours that has so much meaning to you. Like, you say it aloud. All that meaning transmits with your voice. Every cell of your body hears it and takes it as instruction. And your guides and your higher self take it as instruction. So there's 2 vows I'd love you to make. One is, I promise to be as self-accepting as possible for my moments of doubt. Second, and this will change the game, I vow that from here on out, there are no coincidences. Everything and all nothing, all negative space is God. You are half of what is engineering everything at all times. Don't forget that. Often I will be like, can you turn it up? Can you tell me louder? Or can you slow this down a little bit? Because just like a little, like, can you speed this up? Like, yeah, I really do think that. It's like, you should be asking the questions and setting up the experiments yourself, okay? Or half of it. You're not the bystander. You're literally half of everything that happens to you. My last note is the most boring one, but the most important. When something happens, you write the date and you write bullet points, and that includes your dreams. Okay, I love you guys, and I will meet you in the next one. And please join me on Patreon if you want to talk about this stuff more. All right, love you.